Hi, I'm Andrew Burmon. I'm an editor at Huffington Post Travel, and I have the good fortune of talking today with Dan Morrison, the author of The Black Nile, an excellent travel book. Hi, Dan. Can you hear me?
I can. How are you?
I'm good, thank you. And before we start talking about your book, why don't you tell me where you're talking to me from?
I'm speaking to you from Dhaka, the capital of Bangladesh, where I'm researching what I hope will be my next book.
Fantastic. And may I ask what that book's going to be about?
If you promise not to laugh. It'll be a book about the Ganges River, which runs through northern India and into Bangladesh and exits out into the Bay of Bengal.
Okay, fantastic. So you've got sort of a river thing going on.
I think this will be the last river thing.
Okay.
Inshallah.
Yeah. All right. So let's talk about the Black Nile. What prompted your journey? What made you want to travel through what might be the most dangerous part of Africa?
What made the trip possible was that a window opened, and that is that the trip was no longer the most dangerous part of Africa. The Sudanese civil war, which had run for 21 years and killed more than 2 million people, ended with a 2005 peace agreement called the Comprehensive Peace Treaty that made southern Sudan a place that you could just sort of travel just as simply as a guy with a backpack, as opposed to having to negotiate permits from different rebel groups and permits from the through like the occupying army of the north and to get from garrison town to garrison town. Suddenly, it was something you could just sort of skip around and do it with some danger, but without the outrageous danger that might have existed before. Similarly, in northern Uganda, the Lord's Resistance Army, which is quite infamous for its kidnapping of children and turning them into soldiers and sex slaves, that conflict in northern Uganda also quieted down just as I was arriving to begin the journey with peace talks between the government of Uganda and the LRA. Now the LRA the LRA war continues, but you now have just scattered groups of fighters in the Congo and in the western part of southern Sudan and in the Central African Republic. But this took away very, very quickly the deep specter of fear, and it was replaced with the specter of apprehension.
Okay. At one point in the book, a particularly compelling section, you get sort of stuck in a Sudanese gunfight. And a lot of the I hesitate to say characters, they are real people, seem very, very cavalier about it almost. You're not, but did you ever get to a point where you'd adjusted to the violence of the region and some of the sort of the strange things that were happening around you?
I don't think I'll ever be adjusted to having people firing guns right outside the wall of where I'm staying. It concerned me deeply. The other people in that house, some of whom had first-hand experience with warfare. I mean, John Evo Mounto, who was my roommate at that place, had fought in the rebellion starting in '85, was eventually tortured by his own people when they thought he was a spy. He wasn't a spy, but they held him in an underground jail for several months. And so these guys were it was just sort of, they had a different, they just had a different thermostat. What was hot to me was not hot to them.
Yeah. Yeah. And yours did not sufficiently adjust.
No. And I hope it doesn't.
Okay. At another point, you go to a leper colony, and it seems as though many of the lepers in this leper colony feel that they have contracted a disease that they are likely to die from and that they cannot treat. Leprosy is very treatable as a disease. Why do you think modernity sort of hasn't been able to get into parts of Africa? Or why has it been so slow for so many modern things, including medicine, to get in?
And I hesitate to say this because I didn't spend days or weeks with them. I just spent an afternoon with them. But it seemed that they had been consigned to this identity as lepers who lived in this leper colony and who needed help from outside, and that seemed to be who who they were, either who the world allowed them to be or who they allowed themselves to be. But that was it. Yeah, it was a bit confusing.
Yeah, I can see that. So to step away from your job as a journalist, which you are for a minute, what was the most sort of spectacular thing, just on a more upbeat level? What was like the most beautiful thing that you saw on the trip?
I mean, it was just quite lovely, the time I spent on this barge traveling north from Juba, which is the capital of South Sudan, to Malakal, which is the capital of Upper Nile State, near the north-south border. And I was traveling on this barge that was crewed by soldiers from the Sudan People's Liberation Army, and spent my night sleeping on the roof of this barge. And it was just beautiful and peaceful. And we're going through a marsh called the Sud, which is the world's biggest swampland. It's as big as England. And it was just gorgeous and delightful, and just to be sitting on the roof of that barge next to a machine gun, yes, but just stripping sugarcane with my Leatherman, which thankfully found something to use it for, and chewing sugarcane on the roof of a boat, going through the world's largest swamp with these soldiers was quite a nice time.
Fantastic. Now there's sort of a rich literary history surrounding the river that you were on. There's the White Nile. There's the book The White Nile. There's the book The Blue Nile. There's a number of overland travel books like Dark Star Safari by Paul Theroux. Were you inspired by a lot of this stuff? Did you want to have sort of a dialogue with previous travel writers?
I didn't want to have a dialogue with previous travel writers. I found in a used bookshop in Bombay, I found an old paperback copy of a book called The White Nile, which is by a man named Alan Moorhead. Moorhead was a newspaperman and defense correspondent who covered World War II. He was of that generation, and he wrote this thoroughly entertaining, grossly entertaining history of the exploration and exploitation of the Nile Valley, and called it The White Nile. And it's just a delicious history written in the style of someone who went to school before Marxism, and it was a lot of fun, and that really got me hooked. My question was, what is this region like now? This region, there was a blank map, and over a period of maybe 8 decades, it was filled in. Lines were drawn on it, and it was basically occupied by the Union Jack. Okay, that happened in the late 19th century. We're now in the first decade of the 21st century. What is this place like now? What's become of it? And that's what I wanted to know. That's what I set out to find.
I think that's probably a good positive place to end this. So thanks a lot for talking to me, and happy trails in Bangladesh.
Thank you. Thanks for talking to me.